With the release of Alex Garland's latest film, Civil War, we sadly got the news that he's retiring as a director. So with that said, his filmography is complete, so I thought, why not rank the incredibly diverse and unique filmography of Alex Garland? So let's get into it. Just want to preface this by saying that I have not included his television show Devs. This is just his feature films, and that's it. Also, they are the ones that he has directed as well as written. He has written films like 28 Days Later, but as he did not direct that film, it won't be included on this list. And let's get into number 4. So, Men has always been the black sheep in Alex Garland's filmography. Like the rest of his films though, it is incredibly unique, it swings for the fences, it is incredibly divisive, maybe the most divisive film of his filmography. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. This film goes to some really weird places, and on a first watch, I really appreciated the originality of it. It definitely sticks with you, that's for sure. There is no real genericness to this film. It really swings for the fences and you have to appreciate that. However, on a second watch, the film is incredibly shallow. You think that it offers a lot more in the first watch, but in the second watch, once you figure everything out and what's going on with this character being stalked by all these different versions of toxic masculinity and having this repeated cycle that will never ever escape her because that's just the way that it is. The way that the film approaches that, not the best way of handling it in my eyes. It's painfully unsubtle, and unfortunately, as I said, on a second viewing, you just see it for what it is, and there's just nothing more to really gather from it. And because of that, it is definitely his weakest film. I appreciate the performances. I think Jesse Buckley and Roy Kinnear give standout performances in this movie. I think it is incredibly well shot. And I think the first half of it is far better than the second half of it. There is some potential in this film. You do see a masterpiece hidden in here if it was executed a lot better. There's some fantastic body horror here. One with a knife going into someone's arm that will just have your skin crawling. I think that was really effective in its execution. However, as we get to the end, this thing just starts to unravel real fast and just becomes something that is there for shock value and just hammers home a painfully unsubtle message that I don't think was the most effective way of telling that kind of narrative. I have to say, number 4, Men, is the only film in Alex Garland's filmography that I would say I'm more on the caution of not liking very much. The other 3 I think are utterly fantastic films. Starting here with Annihilation, I think this film is exactly what it needs to be. It is so unique in its idea. I know it's adapted from a book, but Alex Garland really puts his own spin on things here and creates a very complex narrative that, unlike Men, is very rewarding on a rewatch. There's so many more themes to uncover, talking about the way that people self-destruct in different ways and different characters kind of manifesting that and bringing a visual of that to life. I thought that was a fantastic way of approaching this narrative. He seems to have that approach of making characters be the physical embodiment of a metaphor, and I think it's handled quite well here in Annihilation. I think Natalie Portman in the lead role is fantastic. The ending, which I won't spoil, is definitely the best part of the movie and recontextualizes the whole thing, really. If you're looking at it from a completely new angle, knowing everything that is going to happen, it's just so rewarding, and there's so many different ways of looking at this film. It's shot brilliantly. There's some real moments of intensity here that you kind of see in a couple of other of Alex Garland's films, but this is one of the best examples of it. This one scene with a bear that is kind of baiting a response out of our characters, and the way that this film is shot and the way that this scene is just executed will have you on the edge of your seat. I think the film is utterly fantastic, and I highly recommend you check it out. Here we have the latest film in his filmography, Civil War, and Boy, this movie is a lot more divisive than what I thought it was going to be. I already knew it was going to be somewhat divisive, but this thing has really taken off, and the comments for my review really showcase that. This is A24's most expensive film, and it is probably making the most money for an A24 film, and because of that, you get people that know what they're getting into with a film like this and people who don't, and that is really apparent when you see what people are commenting and talking about with this movie. There's a lot here. I personally really enjoyed the film. I thought it was fantastic. I'm kind of removed from this all because I'm from Australia and I don't really give a shit about American politics, so I could really just enjoy this film for what it is. And it seems like some people are disappointed by this because it isn't what they thought it was going to be. The trailers may have misled people, the title may have misled people a little bit, but it's not really about left wing versus right wing or anything like that. It's really about the almost power of journalism and the way that it is represented. I think that Alex Garland is really analyzing here the power of the media in a sense. He's criticizing it at points, and I think the way that he does this is very brilliant. It is where the film shines the most, and I think it's where it digs the deepest, rather than the backdrop of this civil war. To me, the film is structured a lot like The Last of Us, where our characters are journeying across America to get to a destination. I won't spoil why, but because of this structure, it really makes the characters connect with one another, and in turn, they really connect with you. I found a very deep connection with these characters, and when things happen to them, I felt it. And I think that's why a lot of us felt the intensity of some scenes. The scene with Jesse Plemons, which is directed brilliantly, is filled with this tenseness because you care about these characters, you care about what's being said, you care about these power dynamics. So I think that people saying that the film is just empty and not taking a side, I just think you're looking at it from the wrong place personally. The film is a technical marvel as well. It's shot brilliantly, so many practical effects, and yeah, going into these performances, Kirsten Dunst in the lead role is utterly fantastic. I thought Kaylee Spaney as well was a standout. She's really showing to be a real true up-and-comer with Priscilla and now this. And as I said, Jesse Plemons in this 5-minute supporting role being so effective here. Really, really loved what this executed. And as I mentioned in my review, the final shot of this movie is such a badass way to end Alex Garland's filmography. One of the most divisive points of this movie, and it just seems so fitting from this filmmaker who weirdly just knows how to get a reaction out of people. And sometimes I don't think he's necessarily going for that. He's trying to provoke a conversation, not really trying to provoke anger out of you, but he just happens to do that sometimes because when you're going into this kind of subject matter, it's just unavoidable when you're talking about politics and a civil war in America. I do love as well the Civil War and the final sequence of this film kind of showing a almost hypocritical lens of the way that people react to certain events in other countries versus how it happens in our back door. I think the film just is really, really brilliant. I think it's so rewatchable. I cannot wait to watch this again. I cannot wait to buy a 4K and check this one out again. I really love this journey that our characters go across here. And there's just so many things it does right. This is what I look for in movies, especially ones that have a higher budget, to give you something to think about, give you something to talk about, while also being this really cool spectacle, push some interesting ideas forward and give us something different to think about that's unique. I just think it's so refreshing. But number one is kind of an all-timer now for me, Ex Machina. I think that this film does exactly what it wants to do when it needs to. It's full of style, it's full of substance. Everything that I know about Alex Garland and what he tries to do with his films, it's just all encapsulated really brilliantly here. And I think it's aged extremely well, not just on a technical standpoint because the visual effects still look really great, but the thematic elements of it too. This is talking about the dangers of AI in some ways and the ego of man. And the way that technology has progressed since this movie came out is kind of still relevant to what this movie is talking about. So I just think that this film gets better and better over the years. I've seen this film 3 times now, and I've loved it more every single time. I think the characters are excellent. The performances from this little ensemble here are all brilliant. This also has some sentimental value to me as well, because this was the first A24 movie that I ever saw. And this kind of sent me down a spiral because, as you might know, I'm a massive fan of A24. This was the film that really introduced me to a different style of filmmaking with unique ideas, but something that still is able to be compelling and interesting and not boring or get too caught up in its ideas. I think Ex Machina just strays the line beautifully. Also, this has one of the best dance scenes of all time, hands down. The ending of this movie is just on another level. I think rewatching this, it gets stronger and stronger too if you're looking at this from different characters' perspectives. Over many watches, knowing what happens in this film, it recontextualizes everything and makes for a completely different experience every single time. And it's just a testament to how good of a screenwriter Alex Garland is, and the unique touch that he added here with his direction was just masterful. I really love this movie, and I think if you're a fan of sci-fi, this is one that you need to see. It's an all-timer in the genre in my eyes. And that's my ranking for Alex Garland's films. Give me your ranking in the comments below. He is maybe the most divisive filmmaker in the last few years, so I'm sure everyone has wildly different opinions. I'm sure some people aren't going to like my ranking, but it is what it is. This is how I have experienced these movies, and nothing is going to change that. And I'm sure you have had different experiences with his movies that I'd love to hear about. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.